This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to College 101 Part 2. So this is kind of an extension of the information that was covered over the summer. We didn't want to give you too much repeat information because you probably heard all of that. Please know, though, that if you do have any questions throughout this process, whether it be the admissions process, the application process, whatever it is, choosing a school, Miss M and I are here to help you. She has the first half of the alphabet through MA, and I have the back half MC through Z. Now, I do want to give a little bit of refresher from College 101 because we think these topics are really, really important to understand. So, first and foremost, applications have been open for a while now. So, they've probably been open for a good month and a half, some schools even longer. Um, Highly recommend starting to get those applications in as soon as you can. There is a little bit of time for some schools, but the schools that have rolling admission, we always say the earlier better. It just kind of lets you get a decision back sooner. It makes you feel a little bit better that you got something off your plate and can alleviate some of that stress that comes with the application process. Now, most of you should have your lists mostly done, not necessarily completely, but a good chunk of it done. If you don't, please come see us. We are more than happy to help you in this process. Now, the main ways that a student are going to apply, usually students will apply either through Common App, Apply Texas, directly through a school's website, or in a case of the California schools, through the UC or the CSU application. Now, the great thing about the applications like Common App, Apply Texas, the UC application is you're only having to fill out your general information like name, email, address, activities, educational history, all that you're only needing to do one time. A lot of this can really be a pain to do. So only having to do it once can save you a ton of time in the process. Now, the most common way that we are seeing students apply is through the Common App. And a big reason for that is the simple fact that the vast majority of schools use the Common App now. The other great part for us is it connects directly to Maya Learning. So as long as the students matched their Maya Learning to Common App, it everything in Common App will show up on their Maya Learning page, which is really great for Miss M and I. We can easily send documents. It makes everybody's life so much easier. I think there's only maybe 4 or 5 students that haven't connected yet, so we're in a really good position. I feel like we're ahead of schedule for where we normally are at. Apply Texas is probably the next most common way we'll see students apply. Apply Texas is simply for schools that are in Texas. If you're applying to any of the Texas community colleges, um, any school in Texas will be on Apply Texas. However, there are a lot of schools in Texas that are now on the Common App as well. The schools don't have a preference. Our recommendations Common App just because it is a little bit easier to use. Now, there might be some instances where you need to apply directly through a school's website. It might be because the school is not on Common App, which is kind of rare now. Might be because they are giving you an application fee waiver, or it might be something athletic related. Those are the big reasons where we see a student apply directly through a school's website, especially if it's post August 1st. Now, once you apply, get back there's a few different types of ways to apply, excuse me. Um, the most common, I would say, is probably rolling admission. So a lot of schools like the Oklahoma schools, the public schools in Kansas, Mississippi, University of Alabama, a lot of the Arkansas, Texas Tech, a lot of those schools will kind of roll out decisions. So you might be seeing some of your friends getting their decisions back. That's the reason why schools will kind of roll decisions out a couple weeks after, usually after a student applies. And I know a lot of the decisions have started to go out in the last couple weeks. Some of you might be wondering about Arkansas. Arkansas will come out in early October, so keep your eyes open in the next couple of weeks for Arkansas. The next most common, I would say, is early action. Early action is great because it's non-binding. Typically, early action is going to have around a November 1st deadline. However, it may be different depending on the school. So make sure you're keeping an eye on what your school's deadlines are. We don't want you to miss a deadline. The great thing about early action, you tend to get your decision back a little bit sooner. It's usually going to be around Christmas time or into January for an early action application. Now, if you apply regular decision, that's typically going to be a December 31st, January 1st type of deadline. Usually you'll get your decision back in like February, March. So really the benefit to early action is you just kind of get an earlier decision, but both early action and regular decision are non-binding. Early decision, though, is the binding application. So this could be a situation where you are dead set on going to some school. So maybe it's SMU, maybe it's TCU. We've had a good amount of students apply early decision to Baylor this year. A reason you might apply early decision is because it does increase your chances significantly. However, you are signing, there's an agreement that's going to be signed between the student, their parent or guardian, and then your counselor. So you are signing an agreement saying if you're admitted, you will attend. You need to be 110% sure that you want to attend this institution. Please note, not all schools have early decision. You might be thinking, oh, that's great. I'll do early decision to UT. UT doesn't offer early decision. Most public schools don't offer early decision. So that's something I think you need to have a really serious conversation with your counselor or with your parents, and then Miss M or I will call you in if we see you're applying early decision to make sure that wasn't a mistake. Okay, now moving on to the new information, the stuff we haven't fully covered in the past. First part, I would argue, is one of the most important pieces of information we are going to give you tonight, and that is information about your application portals. So every school is going to have a portal of some sort, and that portal is going to have a lot of really, really crucial information in there. So first and foremost, keep track of your username and password. Write it down somewhere, have a document that has this information, share it with your parents, because it is so important. So when you get a portal, it usually comes via email. So you'll apply. If it's through Common App, you'll probably get an email from Common App saying, thank you for applying. A couple days later, you'll then get an email from the school saying, hey, we got your application. Here is your username. Here's a temporary password. Here's a link to your portal. Every school will call it something different, but every school, it's a portal. So in the portal, it's the biggest thing is going to be a checklist. So on that checklist, it's going to have everything you need for admission and then eventually enrollment. So it's a great way to kind of check to make sure documents have been received. 99% of the time, your transcript has been sent. Usually what happens, there was an error on the college's side. So maybe it's sitting in some document, or one common thing is that you might have a couple files with that school. Maybe it's because you applied with one email and then they purchased your name through the PSAT with another email, and all they have to do is merge it, but maybe that transcript got sent to the wrong file of yours. So pretty easy fix. That's why it's really crucial that you're taking a look at your portals to make sure everything's there. Now, I will say this, if it's 3 days after you apply and you're seeing, hey, my transcript hasn't been received, give it a few days. Usually processing takes a little bit of time for them to get everything in, so give it a few days. If after a week it's not in there, let us know. We can reach out to that school. We can let them know, hey, it was sent on this date. We could even send them it again and it'll get fixed. We promise you this is a very normal thing. Do not panic, but it is your responsibility to check your portal. We cannot see if documents have been received, so we are relying on you so that we can make sure we can resend it if we need to. So if it's 2 months after you applied and it's after the deadline and you say, hey, my transcript's not received, that's on you for not looking at it. So please make sure that you are looking at those portals. Super important. Additionally, that is where you may receive your decision from the school. They may have links for different scholarships that are specific to the university. Additionally, this is where you can accept your offers. So it is a really, really important place. Make sure you save all of those emails so that way you have all of the links. Moving on to test scores, we are seeing more and more schools move to requiring a test in some capacity, whether it be for admission, whether it be for scholarships, whether it be to enroll. So we are telling you all, make sure that you at least have a test score. You may not need to submit it, and we may tell you not to submit it, but at least having one is super important. Now, a lot of these questions that I think students have, the answer is it depends. And I hate having that as the answer, but that's just kind of the general way it is when it comes to college admissions at this time. I think with a lot of questions, it kind of depends. So should you send your test score? A good rule of thumb that we have is if a school advertises their middle 50%, if your test score falls within that middle 50%, probably a good idea to send it. So if the middle 50% is a 27 to a 31 and you have a 30 ACT, we're probably going to tell you to send it. Some schools will even post their scholarship grids online. So a good thing you can do is just kind of search the name of the school, out-of-state scholarships. They may list, based on this GPA and this test score, you'll receive X amount of dollars. So Oklahoma is a good example. They'll say if you have this GPA and you have a 27 ACT, you'll receive X amount of scholarship dollars. Probably a pretty good indicator at that point that you should send that test score. Because if they're going to give you scholarship money, they're going to accept you with that score as long as your GPA hits. Now, when it comes to when can you send test scores, that also depends. Some schools are different. I'm going to use two examples here. I worked at two schools that had very different ideas when it came to receiving test scores. So when I worked at the University of Wisconsin, if a student's application was deemed complete, it had all the information we needed, and then 2 weeks later you had a new test score, if your application was already reviewed, there's no guarantee that we could go back and review your application with that new test score. So if you are testing in October and you know there are some schools with November 1st deadlines and you want to make sure that your application will get reviewed with that new test score, it might be in your best interest to hold off. If a school is on that rolling admission side of things, so example, when I worked at the University of Louisville, we would accept new test scores into the spring so you could update them later on. That's where it's really, really important to reach out to Miss M or myself, reach out to the reps at the different schools to kind of get an idea of opinions, and we will certainly help you with this process. We know it can be stressful, we know it can be confusing, and especially anytime it depends can be an answer, we want to make sure that we are giving you the best possible advice that we can give you. As far as sending your scores, you do need to send your scores directly through either College Board for SAT or through the ACT's website. I would say probably 90% of schools are going to require those official scores. There may be some that allow screenshots of score reports, but that's not really many. We are not able to send test scores for you, so that is something that you will be required to do yourself. Now, we're seeing more and more schools move to something called the Self-Reported Academic Record, or SRAR. There are some schools out there that will not even accept our transcripts. If we send them, they're going to say, thanks for sending them, but we're not looking at them. And this became more and more common about 3-4 years ago now, so it's becoming more regular, I guess, in college admissions. The great news about the SRAR is if you're applying to a bunch of schools that require it, you only have to do it once. So say your list is Texas A&M, LSU, Tennessee, and Clemson. Good news, you don't need to fill out the SRAR 4 times. You just need to do it once. Miss M created a really helpful guide that walks you through filling out the SRAR. We'll be hosting an event on October 2nd here on campus that will help you walk through filling out the SRAR. So if you need help with it, we're here for you in that process. But the document's great. I will send it out with the recording of this presentation, so no need to worry with that. Some of the schools that do require it, Texas A&M, UTSA, LSU, Tennessee, Clemson, Penn State, UConn, Oregon, Pitt, Virginia Tech, public schools in Florida, Baylor. So there's a good amount that accept it now. So I feel like it's a little bit more worth your time because chances are there might be a couple schools that will accept it. All right, when it comes to letters of recommendation, I think one big question we get a lot is, I need to wait to submit my application before my letters are in. That is not true. You can submit your application before your letters of recommendation have been submitted to Maya Learning by your teachers. That is encouraged. Please do that. Because there are a lot of colleges out there that don't care about your letters. They don't want to read them. All they need is your transcript. All they need is your test score. So don't hold something up because you think you might need letters of recommendation or they might help. That being said, all letters of recommendation will be sent through Maya Learning. So you don't need to request them in Common App. In fact, do not request them in Common App. If you have outside sources writing you letters, have them send it to either Miss M or myself, and we can get it uploaded into your file. It is your responsibility to keep up with your teachers on, when your deadlines are, if you still need the letters of recommendation and that kind of stuff. If you want to check the status, you have to go into your Maya Learning under the Universities tab on the left-hand side. You'll click Universities, and then on the top, there'll be something that says Recommenders or Recommendations, and you can see if your letters have been either completed, if they're still incomplete, or if that teacher's even on the list. Now, everything we've included is from the information you all gave us in the spring. So when we said reach out to us, copy us on the email to the teachers, we added them all for you. So make sure that you're keeping up with your teachers. Eventually, if you've reached out multiple times and then we need to reach out, we certainly will. But please know they do have a lot of letters going their way. Okay, once everything's been submitted, they make a review on your application, you're likely to get one of 5 different decisions. So admit is first and foremost, pretty self-explanatory. The next is a pathway type program. So a good amount of schools will have some type of pathway. Most common ones we see are CAP, the Coordinated Admissions Program through UT Austin. There's the PSA program through Texas A&M. There's Gateway through Texas A&M. There's Blend Team. A&M has a lot of different alternative pathway programs. Some schools might have a Gateway type program where over the summer you'll take some classes and enroll in the fall. That's a really good option. Some schools might have the option to study abroad for a semester before you enroll in your university. Some might make you take a gap year or a gap semester. So not all schools have these, but a lot of schools will have different alternative pathways that you could take if really the goal is to attend that institution almost right away. The next thing that you might receive is defer. Defers oftentimes come from early action, and a defer really could come for a number of reasons. One, maybe the school just didn't get around to reading your application. I know that sounds horrible, but it has happened before. These schools sometimes get an influx of applications that they might not have expected. More commonly, though, they want to see kind of what the regular decision pool is going to look like. A defer is not a deny, so don't think of it as you've been denied. Defers, there's a good chance they just kind of want to see, what that fall semester looks like. So fall semester, it matters. So if you slack off and your grades aren't as good, it's not going to be helpful when you are, if you're deferred or if you're waitlisted in this application process. Now, a really common way that students get deferred is if maybe you've upped your rigor for the first time, or junior year you took a lot of AP classes and maybe you got more B's than you had hoped. Maybe they just want to see another semester of that rigor. So that's something that I would say is kind of encouraging in an application process. We've seen good success with that in the past. Waitlist typically is a lot of times will come with regular decision, but could come with early action as well. Waitlist means they just don't have space in their class. They probably liked your application. They would love to admit you to the class. They just don't have space. So waitlist, what my recommendation is to, if this is your top choice, move forward with your second choice. Because usually waitlist decisions will tend to come out after May 1st, which is the national day to decide. So you want to have another option in place. You might be asking, what are my odds to get off the wait list? Schools don't know. Year to year, things look different, and sometimes you just don't know when it's going to happen. I remember when I worked at SMU, we would get wind that another school would be pulling off their wait list, and we'd realize, oh, we're probably going to lose some students and have to go off our wait list as well. So It's unpredictable. You just never know from year to year. Some years, the schools I worked at had to pull a number of kids off their wait list. Other years, we didn't take anybody off our wait list. It just really depends. And then lastly is deny. Deny is pretty self-explanatory, but with deny, I do want to add, you might think, oh, I'm going to submit an appeal. The odds of the appeal being accepted are slim to none. If you have questions about that, come see us. We are happy to help. But usually with an appeal, it comes down to, is there new and compelling information? Not that you're inducted into the National Honor Society, which is great. Congratulations if that was you. Or not if you upped your ACT score by even a point. They want to see national things. They want to see, oh, you received a national award, or maybe something significant happened in your life. That's the kind of stuff that there need to be. We're happy to give you our honest feedback on whether or not an appeal is worth it. All right, once you've received your decision, we need to know your decision. So make sure you're keeping us in the loop on everything. Nobody will see the decisions that have been received. We just need it, one, so we can have informed decisions in the future. It really helps us when we're going through the advising, knowing a student with a certain GPA, a certain test score, maybe got admitted or denied. It helps kind of build lists in the future. You're able to update your Maya Learning yourself with the decisions, or you can certainly just let Miss M or I know, and we're happy to update it for you. When it comes to scholarships, even if you're not attending the school, please report all scholarships to Miss M or myself. In there, please include the name of the university, the name of the scholarship, and the amount. So maybe it's from KU, say University of Kansas, KU Excellence Award, worth $64,000 over 4 years. We'll add it into Maya Learning for you, and all this information is promoted as a total for the class. So no one will ever know how much scholarship money you earned unless you tell them, but it will be promoted as a total from the class. Additionally, in the honors convocation booklet, it will say so-and-so received these scholarships. It'll just say the names, won't say the amounts. Okay, moving on to the fun topic of financial aid. So you probably saw information about our college knowledge night for September. The one for October will actually be around financial aid. So Owen Bly, who's the Dean of Admission at Providence College, will be doing a presentation to talk about things like FAFSA and CSS profile. Just to give you an idea of what these two terms mean, the FAFSA, or the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, likely won't open till December now. The Department of Education, I feel, has, again, led us astray with when this will be released. But the FAFSA is something you will need for need-based aid. It's going to take a look at your family tax information to kind of determine how much aid you might be eligible for. It's usually not required if you don't want to submit it, but there are a handful of schools that might require it for scholarship purposes. Important to communicate with the schools. And then lastly is the CSS profile. This is run through College Board. It is not free. There aren't a ton of schools that require it, but there are some popular ones amongst our students that may require it. So TCU, SMU, two schools that require it. That is available a little bit sooner. Highly recommend filling that out when it becomes available. Please note it does take a deeper dive on finances, so it's gonna dig a little bit deeper than the FAFSA will. But again, not all schools use the CSS profile. You can certainly reach out to us or to your admissions counselor at each school to know if you need to fill out the CSS profile.
Okay, so let's talk scholarships. So hey everybody, it's Ms. Marchesini. So scholarship-wise, we get a lot of questions about applying for scholarships. Have I, hit all the bases when I'm applying for scholarships? So first and foremost is going to be the school-based scholarships. And the largest chunk of scholarship dollars, the biggest thing that will take away the largest amount of tuition for, funding college is going to probably come from the college itself. So most of these types of scholarships are not going to require a separate application. Now, that being said, they may have separate application questions within the common application, for example. So I know that Texas A&M or Texas Tech both have separate questions that are used for scholarship consideration. But a lot of the time, there isn't necessarily going to be a separate application for these like large major university scholarships. Now, there may be some schools that have departmental scholarships. So maybe you're applying for the College of Engineering and they have an engineering scholarship, or there's a scholarship for students from the DFW area, et cetera. So there may be some separate scholarships from the school that might have a separate application. And then some may have competitive scholarship programs that are going to have a cutoff for based on your test score or your GPA, or they might have a leadership or service component to it, where there may be essays or interviews. But most of the scholarship dollars that will cut down the majority of college tuition typically does come from the school itself. Now, outside scholarships, this is something that we get tons of questions about. And honestly, like to be 100% frank, it's kind of like the wild, wild west when it comes to outside scholarships. It's a lot about the research that you do, and it's a lot of getting organized and searching and applying, and maybe not hearing back from scholarships, or hearing back super late. So it is kind of it's extra work to do. But it can be really lucrative if you do the extra work. So these outside scholarships may be found. I always tell students to start with the low-hanging fruit, the easiest check boxes. So it might be found through local organizations that you are a part of. So maybe it's your church or a family member's place of work. It could be parents, it could be grandparents, it could be aunts, uncles, different organizations that you may have been a part of throughout your lifetime, or your family's been a part of. There are also websites, scholarship websites out there, and I know that they sound fake, but and it can feel like you're just kind of putting an application out there into the universe, and like you don't know where it's going to go. But it is one of those things where if you send in enough, sometimes when you are just throwing the darts at the dartboard, you hit a bullseye. So with those websites, we send them out every single month in that monthly newsletter that I've been sending out at the beginning of each month. So if you look back in your inbox, if you search newsletter, it'll be in there if you look for the September one. And then there will also be an October one coming out here in the next couple of weeks. Moving forward, talking about college reps. So this is also coming from, myself and Mr. Ringet, two past college reps. But reps are not scary. And I hope that you guys have been great about talking to them, but I hope you do not feel afraid to ask them questions, whether it's in person or via email throughout the year. College reps are your allies in this process. Parents, students, if you have questions, reach out to the reps. If you have questions about that specific school and how they do something, reach out to them, like get it straight from the horse's mouth. Because not only are you going to get the right answer, but also it can show demonstrated interest. So if a school cares about demonstrated interest, and that's, the amount of touch points that you have with the school and how much interest you're showing in them. If they care about that, then that's a plus. But also they know a lot more than we do. And sometimes things change from year to year. And maybe it's a process that changed that we, didn't know about yet. And sometimes you can be, the person getting the scoop for us. So ask college reps those specific questions about the school and about their processes. This is something that maybe you don't have to worry about just yet, but we'll, continue to remind you about this throughout the year. But if you've been admitted to a school and you are no longer interested in that school, it is not weird to let them know. So if you, throughout the fall, if you get admitted maybe to your top school and you are not interested in your other schools anymore and you want to stop receiving their emails, you can let those reps know. Obviously do it kindly, don't send them like a kind of mean email. You can do it kindly, but this is good for them to know, because if you think about it, you are like a customer of theirs that they are, trying to like worry about and figure out what you're doing and how they can support you. And so if you just let them know, hey, thank you so much for all of your help, but I've actually decided to go to another school. If they ask you where you went or where you're going or why you're going to go there, it's again, they're not salty. They just really want the data. So just let them know it's not weird. And then you can go off and celebrate, and then they can stop worrying about whether you're going to sign up for housing or not. But also reps can have your back in the admissions and scholarship process. So I know like when I worked in admissions, if I had students that, talked to me at, visits or college fairs, or sent me emails and asked me questions, or if I was hosting a coffee night and they came and we got to get to know each other, when we would do our, scholarship applications and we'd be reviewing those, I typically obviously had a really good feeling about that student. And I would like back them in that process. So it is really great if you build a relationship with them and just have a positive relationship, because they can really have your back, and maybe they could let you know about a scholarship that maybe you qualify for, or they're there just to answer your questions. And it's always great to have a good relationship with them. And you might be like, well, I want to start interacting with reps. I feel kind of awkward. I don't really know what to talk to them about because I've already applied, or I'm applying and I don't really have that many questions. And we wanted to give you some questions that are, recommended by us that maybe you haven't thought about, that will give you some great answers that are helpful, but also it's things that are not necessarily always found on the website. So what you should ask obviously depends on where you are in the admissions process. And for those of us that are applying in that phase, a couple questions that are great to ask would be, do you accept, if you have a resume, like a professional resume, or you feel like you weren't really able to express yourself in the activities section, do you accept a resume via email? When can I, talked about test scores, when can I submit my test score? Could I submit a test score later? Will you accept an updated GPA for scholarship purposes? Do you track demonstrated interest? What are a couple of events on campus that you can't miss? That's a great question that one of our colleagues in admissions said on a panel that has, really stuck with us is, what are 2 or 3 events on campus that you just can't miss as a student? What types of freshman support programs do you offer? Sometimes there are mentorship opportunities, or maybe they have a class that's similar to freshman seminar or something, or maybe they have living and learning communities that you didn't know about before that are great for freshmen. How do you review for scholarships? So that's good to know if that's going to be something that's based on your application, or if it's going to be based just solely on, test score and or GPA, or if they're going to be looking at your leadership or your essays, et cetera, et cetera. And then also, how do you release decisions? Are you on a rolling basis, or do they have specific drop days that they're going to be doing? Or, is it going to be kind of like in the spring or in the fall? So it just gives you some good information about what to expect and when you should expect it. Now, if you have been accepted, some good questions to ask, because I know sometimes it's like, all right, well, I've already been accepted. I don't really need to talk to them when they come to campus. That is not true. You could ask them, what should be on my radar now? Super excited that I've been accepted. What do I need to be thinking about now? When should I apply for housing? And is housing a commitment to the university, or is it something that I can get done early and then I can back out of it and there's no, harm, no foul on it? Do you have accepted student visit days? What do those entail? Is it better than a campus visit that I could take on my own? Or is it, awesome because I'll get to meet some other accepted students? And then the big one that we always recommend, are there additional scholarship opportunities that I need to be aware of? I'm going into this major or this academic college. Is there anything from that college that I should be aware of that I've missed scholarship-wise as an application? As I was talking about the accepted student days, that brings us to campus visits. So we highly, highly, highly recommend going on your campus visits. And whether that is before you apply or after you apply, that is up to you and your family's schedule and what is going to work with you. But we do recommend visiting the schools that you are super interested in, because that is going to give you the best idea of what that school is like. Websites or talking with reps, obviously you can get a feel for the visit or for the school, but actually being on the campus, experiencing the travel that you might have to take to get there, experiencing the climate, feeling the vibe of the city or wherever you are, that is going to give you the best feel for whether that's a good fit for you. Typically, visits can be scheduled through their website. So if you have questions about scheduling a visit or a visit day, or if their visits are full, you could always email the rep. When I was a rep, if our visit days were full, I would like help students, and I would give them, if you're going to go on your own little tour around campus, here are the buildings that I'd look at. I'd give recommendations for places to stay or restaurants to check out around town. So I always think it's a good touch just to email the rep, good touch point to have, and a little good demonstrated interest checkpoint. But they, again, are your ally and they can help you. But you can also take virtual tours that are found on websites. Sometimes they have them on social media, or we love the college tour that's on Amazon Prime. A lot of times too, they'll have them on YouTube. That was a big thing during COVID. So a lot of places have virtual tours, and you can just go and take a little virtual tour and see what the campus looks like. Again, you get the best feel for it when you're actually on campus, but sometimes travel is crazy and you're not able to see it. So you can always go and take a little virtual tour and get a feel for it. In the campus visit process and everything with scheduling, you do want to make sure that you're following the visit policy at BL. You do get 2 freebie campus visit absences per year. So it's not per semester, it is per year. You do have to fill out the pink sheet that can be found in the attendance office. So you can go in, and then if you have questions about the process, Ms. Ledford or Ms. Rodriguez will help you through that process, but you have to get the pink sheet signed by the teachers for the classes that you will be missing for your campus visit. Again, if you have questions, let us know, or I always want you to email attendance and get the official policy. So to finish up our presentation tonight, we wanted to give some fall timeline and tasks. So this is great. We are going to send out this presentation, so you do not have to take notes of this or write all of this down, but we wanted to give the tasks that can be on your radar for this month as well as next month. So in this month of September, if you are applying early decision anywhere, please notify us ASAP. Let us know. We do get, the notification through Maya Learning if you have applied early decision or indicated that, because it tells us that we need to fill out the form. But if you are applying early decision somewhere and you have not talked to myself or Mr. Inget, please let us know ASAP so we can have that conversation. Talk to the admissions counselors that are visiting before school and during lunches. They are amazing. I know that our visits have slowed down a bit, but now there's going to be, smaller groups, but still consistently coming to visit us. So definitely make sure that you talk to the reps. If you are curious if a school is going to come visit us, you can email us. And then if you, wanted a touch point with a school, you can always email them and say, hey, are you coming to Dallas and going to visit my high school? I go to Bishop Lynch. That's always nice. Attend SRAR night at the end of September / beginning of October if you are applying to any schools that require it. So again, that is going to be October 2nd. So this was created before we scheduled it officially, but that will be October 2nd. Again, SRAR night, and we will walk through how to do that. Continue working on your applications and your essays. You can email one of us an initial draft of your essay, and we will look it over and give feedback. Update Maya Learning with any admission decisions you have received. I'm sure you've all seen the fun acceptances map that we have outside of guidance. But if you start receiving an acceptance, you can come in and grab a pin and put it in. I've put up some logos for some schools that we should be hearing from this fall. So you can put a pin where that school is located on the map. And then always a good reminder to write down the usernames and passwords to the application portals that you have received so far. And then this is optional, but if you are taking AP classes, you should have received emails about this already, and your teacher should have done this for you, but you must add your AP exam join code to your College Board account to register for the AP exam in the spring. And you must add the join codes for every exam you plan to take. So for October, it's a lot of the same things as September, but just to make sure that you are checking your applying list on Maya Learning. I know that with Maya Learning and the Common App being linked, it can kind of feel like a little set it and forget it moment where you don't really have to worry about it. But we do want to make sure that everything in there is correct, because Maya Learning is how we send out all of your documents. So we don't have access to your Common App. So if you add a school to your Common App and then you remove it, it's then been added to your Maya Learning, but it doesn't remove from there too. So we might have some schools in there where we're like, hey, are you still planning on applying to Boston College? And if you're like, no, I removed that weeks ago, we don't know that because they get added, but they don't get deleted from Maya. So just make sure that all of your schools are in there, the application types are correct, and everything's looking good so that your documents will be sent promptly. You can check the status of your letters of recommendation in the recommendations tab. You can give your teachers a gentle nudge if they have not done your letters yet. Obviously, be polite. It's always a good touch to send thank you notes to your teachers. This is just my shameless plug for that. If you send thank you notes to teachers, that's always a really nice thing to do. Check your application portals. Are you missing any documents? When did you send in those applications? Maybe, it's the delay that Mr. Inget had been talking about. Maybe we need to resend a document. Just continue working on your applications, talking to admissions reps, updating Maya Learning, and updating the acceptance map. So that's kind of what we want on your radar for these next 2 months. I know it can be a crazy push to November 1st, but it will be here before you know it, but you also have plenty of time. So, we have, a little over a month before that big November 1 day. And you have plenty of time, but also you don't have all the time in the world. So we want you guys to let us know how we can support you through this process and make it as, seamless and chill and calm as possible and stress-free. I think that was all of our slides. Do you have anything additional, Tony, that you want to add before we log off for the night?
I don't have anything other than if you all ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help with this process in any way that we can. If for some reason we don't respond to your email in a couple days, please email us back and say, hey, just wanted to circle back on this because there's a chance it may have gotten accidentally marked as read. So please keep us in the loop on everything. We're here to help in this process.
Awesome. Thank you guys for coming tonight, and we will see you at school tomorrow. Bye.